And welcome back to Meeting of the Minds. Today I'm here with the great Adam Brochetti. We had some battles back when we were in our college days in wrestling. He got the better of me two out of three times, so he's a man I really respect. I respect him either way, no doubt about it. But great wrestler, Marine, businessman, family man. Adam, I'm just honored you joined us in the show.
Gene, thanks, buddy. It's great to be here today. And yeah, I remember those battles. I think we always met up at the Navy Classic here in Annapolis.
You're right.
I think maybe a couple dual meets too, Rutgers Navy, but yeah.
No, you're right. We wrestled every time at Navy.
Yeah, that's right.
So you had the home field advantage there, like that.
That's what happened. No, man, I remember this, but yeah, you're a good man, Gene. Great to be here. I love what you're doing, buddy. These podcasts are awesome, shaping and molding minds, and it's such a great thing. So happy to be here today.
Yes, thank you. All right, so let's walk us through your journey from wrestling, then on to the Naval Academy, Marines, and then now in business and sales.
Yeah. So I guess start from the beginning. Wrestling. We all get into wrestling for different reasons. I never had anybody in my family that had wrestled before on either my mother or father's side. So it was a brand new concept in my family. The reason I got in, I was just a rambunctious kid, probably some undiagnosed ADD, roughhousing all the time. We were obsessed with WWF back in the day, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. So we were setting up rings in our house and body slamming little brother. So, my father was like, we got to get this kid into something. So they found wrestling. And that's how it all started at age 10 at the local YMCA in my hometown. And, wrestling, I played a lot of sports growing up, but there's something about wrestling that was different that kind of drew me in. It's just such a grind, which we all know, but, winning a wrestling match, it's just, for the first time, it's a life-changing event as a young kid. I mean, the confidence that puts in you, just that glory of that first win, it's a feeling that you just want to replicate. And so immediately I knew that was my sport. So that's how it all happened. And I just kind of wanted more of it. And, did a lot of sports growing up, but wrestling, that's what really brought me in, and ultimately led to me, going to the Naval Academy. I was a good athlete or a good student in high school. I'm competitive. So I'm not saying I'm not the smartest, but I worked hard because I'm competitive. And so I got good grades and a good wrestling career in high school helped me to get into to the Naval Academy in Annapolis. So that was kind of the beginning of how that all happened. So it's kind of Dad wanted me out of the house, man.
Yeah, definitely. And then how did that shape you then going to the Naval Academy? That had to be a big jump from just high school.
Yeah. Well, the Naval Academy, I would say wrestling shaped me more than the Naval Academy. So I'll go into what wrestling gave me. But being at the Naval Academy, all the intangibles I came there having. The Naval Academy, what it really taught me, we got a lot of leadership training, but really the Naval Academy taught you organization, right? Because there's just so much happening there, and you're going to get behind. You're going to fail if you're not organized because, you're dealing with the military aspect, right? You're dealing with a very tough academic curriculum. I was an engineer there, so that if you don't like math, you're out of luck, buddy. I mean, it's a brutal curriculum, and then throwing in wrestling. I mean, that just makes a recipe for a disaster if you're not an organized person. So I think that's what the Naval Academy brought to me. But I would say wrestling allowed me to get through there and do well. I think wrestling, and this is kind of what this is all about, wrestling prepares you, I think, for anything you do in life. Okay. Any success I find in my life, I can attribute that to what I learned wrestling. It prepares you to compete every single day. Most importantly, for discipline. I mean, I think in order to be successful in life, you got to be disciplined. And that's probably the most important thing I pulled away from wrestling, delayed gratification, having to go through a long, rigorous season, right? Everybody knows that grind, personal sacrifice, all these things that you take from wrestling, the perseverance, having to get back up after a devastating loss. those are all the attributes that I think allow you to go to a place like the Naval Academy and excel and do well. So the Naval Academy taught me a lot, but wrestling helped me go there and helped me, do well at that institution. So I give it all to wrestling, just like other sports too. But I think, that was the main amplifier for me.
Makes sense. Now,
Yeah.
wow, going from engineering eventually into sales, I would assume most engineers cannot make that transition.
Yeah, it's the Naval Academy. It is everybody there basically gets a minor in engineering. And at the time, that was a challenging major that I just wanted to try. I knew that after graduation, I wasn't going to be applying that major, right? I mean, so we're all either going to be leaders in the Navy or leaders in the Marine Corps. So I knew it wasn't as relevant. I chose engineering more as a way to learn to solve problems and be challenged. But it really had nothing to do with going into sales. That's a whole different story that happened after the Marine Corps, so, which I'll go into. Yeah.
Chooses engineering just because he thinks it would be fun to learn. You're a machine.
I was misguided.
Oh, that's great, but I'm sure that helped shape you, because everything we do, it shapes us in some way.
It does. Again, it's just, with wrestling, we learn and we're taught to put your head down and grind and take challenges head on, face on, however you want to say it. That's how I viewed engineering. Like, man, I know this is a very tough curriculum, and if I choose something like this at the Naval Academy, I'm going to have it together to be able to do well and get through this. I'm going to have to be even more prepared, but have to be more organized, especially with wrestling. So I did that. I wanted to do that as a challenge. And, I knew that I probably would never use it, but it was a good baseline education. Naval Academy is heavily in the sciences. And again, I definitely benefited from having to balance all of those things in such a difficult manner. That helped me later on in life.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Now talk about that transition from the Naval Academy to the Marines.
So becoming a Marine, I would say about 20% of our graduates roughly go into the Marine Corps. And so, Gene, were you 02, class 2002 high school?
Yeah.
Okay. So you and I, we were the first class our senior year basically is when 9/11 happened. Okay. Right. So very, that galvanized our country, but more, I think that senior graduating class, I'd already made the commitment to go to the Naval Academy. But through that experience, I knew that, at the time being in school, I had a lot of friends and people I knew that were in Iraq, that are in Afghanistan, that they're actively engaged in combat. And so, we all wanted to be a part of that, but, I made a decision that I wanted to be a leader of Marines on the ground, on the front lines, and lead Marines in combat. So that's the decision that I'd say a lot of most of the wrestlers decided to do at that point. So transitioning into the Marine Corps, I would say very grueling process, right? Tough mentally, very tough mentally and physically. But the people that excel in the Marines, a lot of times were some of the athletes that I worked with, a lot of the wrestlers, people that were used to living that daily grind. So the Marine Corps, the whole transition process wasn't that difficult, but from a physical standpoint. What was difficult was learning to cope with the fact that we were going to be leading young men and women into combat, right? So we went through probably a year and a half training process where we learned all the basics of leadership, how to lead a platoon into an offense, into a defensive position, how to call in air support. And it was real. It wasn't real. I mean, it was training, but we knew that, as soon as we graduated, we were going off to Afghanistan or Iraq. So the stakes are much higher. And it was a real, that this wasn't just training. We were going to be applying this in real life or death scenarios coming up soon. And I would say the most difficult part of the whole transition, I mean, the training is the training. If you're a wrestler, you've been through the grind, it's not going to be that hard. The most exciting and the hardest part for the transition in the Marine Corps was that first time you step in front of your platoon, right? Because you think about, we're young officers that, all our Marines knew, we have no real world experience other than practicing, learning doctrine and studying, battle scenarios. So the first time you step in front of your platoon, it's nerve-wracking, right? Because you have one chance to make a great impression. And these Marines they're gonna be judging you, okay? And how do we, as somebody with no experience, gain the respect and lead these men, women who've already been to battle, they've been to combat. Now we're stepping in there as a young lieutenant. So that was the most difficult part. But obviously you use your intuitions and leadership to get through that. And then after all the training, I linked up with my unit and did two pretty serious combat deployments over to Afghanistan, 2008 and back in 2010.
Wow, excellent. And
Yeah.
on behalf of everyone, thank you for your service. I should have said.
Appreciate it.
To John Cox when he was on too, but both of you guys and everyone at the academies and just all of our armed forces. So thank you.
Thank you, Gene.
Talk about that a little bit, because that's great for leaders in general, business and money. You're stepping in, or even a young coach. You're stepping in front of a group for the first time. You might have assistant coaches that are much older than you, more experienced. What are some of maybe the mindsets that you want to bring in there, and maybe some common mental mistakes that you've seen or maybe that you've made that they could avoid?
The biggest mistake when stepping in front of a group of anybody, all different levels of experience, different ages, the worst thing you can do is come into that with a chip on your shoulder, right? Come in there acting like there's nothing you need to learn. I think the best, I've seen people fail miserably doing that. They come in and they're insecure. And so they try to overcompensate that with trying to lay the hammer down, right? And just try to let everybody know they're in charge. I think you approach a situation like that with humility, and just let the people know we're a team, right? I'm your platoon commander. I've been entrusted to lead you all, but without this team aspect, without the give and take, without me being able to learn from you and you learn some stuff from me, we're never going to be able to succeed. So it's really just treating people with respect, working together to complete a common goal, but just being humble. I think the other most important part about that is just leading by example. You have to practice what you preach. You got to be the leader. You got to. In most wrestlers I see that become leaders of Marines, they always lead from the front because that's just the mentality that we're trained to take on. So those are some of the things that I think will help you become a leader. That'll help you earn the respect of the people that you're leading. Right? It's leading from the front. Building mutual trust and just and really working on teamwork. So that's how we. It's not rocket science, kind of leadership 101, but that's how we'd applied. And going through two very difficult combat experiences, that is, having those things is essential. Having a group of people that love and respect each other and that would do anything for each other, that's key to success, especially in a life or death situation.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Now talk about how you transitioned from there, from the Marines and into business and sales.
Well, yeah. So after my second deployment, I came back and I went to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And so I was the company commander up there for about 150 very critically wounded Marines. There's actually a couple that were with me when I was over at my last deployment that were still in the hospital, they've been wounded on that deployment. So I was entrusted to be their leader up in Bethesda, Maryland. And my job was basically to oversee their recovery. The people that are the Marines that were fit to go back to duty, we'd help them get back into the Marine Corps, but most of them were going to be transitioned out. So we helped them, navigate through the VA process, get all the benefits that they've earned, and just help them with hopefully a meaningful transition back to society, to the civilian world. So that's what I was doing when I transitioned over to Lincoln. It was really just through happenstance. I met some great people who invited myself and a bunch of wounded Marines up to the Army Navy game up at Lincoln Financial Field in Philly. It was just through that event. I was a Marine captain. I had a bunch of my Marines with me, and we met some of the leadership at Lincoln and really hit it off. And they'd suggested that if I ever got out, I should apply. I love the culture at Lincoln. I mean, all the people that I talked to there, they were just great. It looked like they were having a lot of fun. I didn't really know anything about sales, but I knew that, coming from the Marine Corps, I love culture. And I wanted to work in another culture that I felt like I could thrive. Something that was a meritocracy where you could work hard, your hard work would pay off. And I, in talking to these great people at Lincoln, I really felt that was the case. So it was really just a fluke, being at the right place, the right time, meeting them. And I took a chance and went over to Lincoln and interviewed and found myself up in Radnor, Pennsylvania. And 8 months later, was lucky enough to get a sales job here. And where I'm currently at Annapolis, Maryland. I've been here for 6 years now. So it's great to be back.
That is great. And you're right. You would think more wrestlers would gravitate towards sales. I mean, I don't know the job distribution breakdown among wrestlers, but just like you said, the fact that it's a meritocracy, you could work as hard as you work, you could be that good. You would think wrestlers would always gravitate to that.
I think it's just lack of awareness. I never knew anything about sales. You hear sales and you automatically, there's like a bad connotation with it, right? I don't know why, but if you think, everything in life is sales. You're always no matter what you're doing, you're trying to persuade somebody of, what you have to provide them is going to be good for them. It's going to improve or enhance their life. So sales is a very important skill to have in life. And so I just think it's bad branding. I think, it's a wonderful job for anybody who's driven. And I think it's a great place for wrestlers to go or to look at. I think sales comes in all shapes and sizes, but and it's just so much about relationships and building trust between yourself and your customers. And that's all things that, we've done and learned our whole life, and especially the military that's built on relationships and teamwork and working together. So yeah, sales is a great career. So I didn't know that. I just stumbled upon it, but it's something I love, and I'm really glad this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and like you said, a bad connotation, but it's really problem solving. It's helping people get what they want. Like if it's not a good match, that's not what we're talking about really with sales. It's finding their pain and how could we help you with that? And like you said, we do that all the time. If you have a good piece of exercise equipment, you're like, Gene, you should get this. I'm like, no, I already have this other piece of equipment. You're like, no, but this is really going to help you. This is your goal. This is what you want to use. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. And, just like wrestling, where you build a process, there's a process to sales. And just like wrestling, where every day we wake up to compete day after day, you got to wake up to compete every day with sales. And it's kind of fun. It's the same. There's a lot of the same type of gratification. And it's not that it's a game, but it does feel good to compete every day. When you're able to help somebody, you're able to build a relationship. It's a great feeling, right? And it keeps you coming back, and it keeps you doing that job, because obviously you got to like what you do, and you got to feel like you're contributing. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels between wrestling and sales. So it's a great career. I would urge any wrestler who's getting out or just finishing up college to look at that direction, because it's a very it can create a good lifestyle and an independent lifestyle if you're a self-starter. And again, like wrestling, you have to be a self-starter. You have to be independent. You have to be somebody who builds great daily habits and builds a process and sticks to the process. So again, I think there's some really, really good parallels to wrestling in business and sales.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing from you with wrestling, school, Marines, business, sales. It's very similar when you talk about the mindset. That's what we're talking about, the mindset. What mindsets and perspectives help you versus what hurt you? That's great.
I think the mindset that hurts you, because I want to focus on that first. And this is the same mindset that hurts you in wrestling. It's a mindset of, self-doubt, complacency, being afraid to lose, being afraid to mess up. Those are all the pitfalls that I think will derail you in sales, but those are also the pitfalls that will keep a good wrestler from becoming great. That I don't really get to discuss that in terms of the wrestling, but that's something I always saw in wrestlers, even myself. Some of the problems I had at the highest stage in the big matches, I was held back sometimes because I'm not sure lot of wrestlers can relate to this. I know they can. Just being fearful of messing up or losing or disappointing somebody, that holds you back. That keeps you from reaching your highest potential. That's self-doubt. So when you can correct that, that's where I've seen good wrestlers become great. When you correct that in sales, you're able to have, when you have that mindset of self-confidence, not being afraid to fail, not being afraid of rejection, to pick up the phone and talk to somebody that you don't know. That's when that really sets the stage for some success. Okay. Then obviously with sales, you have to do everything that you did in wrestling. You have to set goals, right? You have to build good daily habits. You have to come up with an actual process. And then just like wrestling, just like every other thing we've done in our life, you stick to the process, you trust that process, and that's going to give you the confidence to know that will pay off. Right. And then lastly, you just kind of get up every day and you go compete, right? You should be excited to compete and to try to complete that goal just like you did before. But those are some of the mindsets, and I guess some of the pitfalls. And again, there's a lot of parallel there.
That's awesome. Great stuff, Adam. I really appreciate you jumping on the show. So much very practical and concrete information that people could take with them. I hope anyone watching, well, we're pre-recorded right now, but when people do watch, I hope they're sitting there with a notebook, a pen, taking notes, because everything you gave was great. Thank you very much, Adam.
Oh, anytime, Gene. Pleasure to be here, buddy. And again, thanks for what you guys are doing. Best of luck.
Absolutely. You too. Take care.
Take care.